Danger, Will Robinson! Danger! No, Will Robinson!
Dear, I'm freezing. I shall never survive the night.
My body temperature is 95. If you wish to be warm, Dr. Smith, come into my arms.
Do you remember a science fiction film that once defined an entire generation's passion for space, igniting the fascination with survival against impossible odds in the endless void of the cosmos? That is none other than Lost in Space, the sci-fi legend that shook the screen nearly 3 decades ago and to this day remains an irreplaceable icon. Yet behind this seemingly familiar series lies countless secrets that not even its most devoted fans have ever known. A robot suit weighing hundreds of kilograms, suffocatingly hot, and at one point nearly set the entire studio on fire. Or the story of an actor who, because of a single spoken line, abandoned Hollywood and vanished forever from the spotlight. And those are only 2 among 20 hidden secrets that Lost in Space has carefully kept concealed for decades. All of them will be revealed right now. 1. From a forgotten side role to the soul of Lost in Space. In the very first pilot script, Dr. Smith did not even exist. Jonathan Harris was only invited at the last minute, meant to play a temporary villain for a few episodes before disappearing. But Harris refused to accept such a fleeting fate. Quietly, he reshaped the character, turning Smith into a flamboyant, venomous, yet oddly charming figure that viewers could not look away from. The line, "Oh, the pain," became iconic, while his demand to keep the credits special guest star in every single episode was an audacious move never seen before, and Harris succeeded.
Oh, the pain. The pain.
Oh, the pain. The pain.
From a character not even written in the script, Dr. Smith rose to become the very center of the series, transforming the entire atmosphere of Lost in Space. And yet, this very spark of creativity eventually led to one of the strangest episodes ever filmed. 2. Billy Mumy and Angela Cartwright, a teenage romance that shocked Hollywood. Unbelievable, but true. When Lost in Space began filming, Billy Mumy as Will was only 12 and Angela Cartwright as Penny had just turned 13. On screen, they were siblings in the Robinson family. Yet in real life, Mumy quickly developed feelings for his co-star, patiently waiting until he had a driver's license before officially asking her out. What seemed like nothing more than a playful teenage crush soon became surprisingly serious. The 2 even got engaged while still in their teens, stirring a wave of chatter across Hollywood. But as often happens with young love, they suddenly parted ways. Their youth, along with diverging paths, pulled them in different directions. What no one expected was that instead of breaking apart in bitterness or scandal, Mumy and Cartwright maintained a strong friendship for decades, something nearly unheard of in the volatile world of show business. Yet not every behind-the-scenes story of Lost in Space carried such a graceful ending. 3. The Carrot Nightmare, the episode that enraged fans. It stands as one of the most bizarre episodes in the history of science fiction. Television, the entire crew of Lost in Space being transformed into plants thanks to a talking giant carrot.
Good day to you, stranger.
Good day.
The script penned by Peter Packer was so peculiar that he hid it from Jonathan Harris, afraid of his reaction. And indeed, once on set, the actors burst into uncontrollable laughter, forcing multiple retakes of entire scenes. But behind the laughter came a devastating blow. The episode was mocked, heavily criticized, and sparked a wave of backlash so strong that the network handed down the death sentence. Lost in Space was cancelled just 1 episode later. And amid that chaotic downfall, an unexpected romance quietly began to blossom in real life. 4. Guy Williams, from Zorro legend to a shocking withdrawal. Guy Williams, immortalised in the hearts of millions as the unbeatable Zorro, placed immense faith in Lost in Space. Accepting the role of John Robinson, he believed he would be at the helm of a serious, grand and dramatic adventure. But reality struck hard, not long after the series abruptly shifted direction, adopting a campy comedic tone to ride the wave of Batman's popularity. The role of John Robinson, once intended as the central figure, was reduced to a faded shadow aboard the very ship he was supposed to lead. This change was nothing less than a direct blow to Williams's pride and reputation. Unable to endure the decline, he chose to leave Hollywood, quietly abandoning the bright lights and the promising opportunities ahead. He turned to Argentina, where the image of Zorro still lived on as an undying icon, as if clinging to the last remnants of glory. From that moment, Williams vanished from the entertainment world, never to return to the screen. It was one of the deepest wounds left behind the scenes of Lost in Space. 5. The Robot B9 Suit, a 200-pound moving hazard.
With all my lights, I can double as a passable Christmas tree.
The iconic Robot B9 of Lost in Space was the creation of Robert Kinoshita, the same genius who had built the legendary Robbie the Robot. But few knew that the suit weighed nearly 200 pounds, fully sealed from head to toe, and burned like a furnace inside. For Bob May, the man inside it, it was nothing less than becoming a walking hazard on set. Strangely, May was not chosen for his acting skills, but simply because his body fit the suit's original design perfectly, so exact that no adjustment was required. It was a rare coincidence, making him the only man who could inhabit Robot B9. The first time he put it on, Bob May endured a nightmare-sharp metal edges and electrical wiring scraped his skin raw, while the suffocating heat made it feel like he was locked inside a fiery cage. Actions such as turning on the lights, rotating the antenna, or moving the arms all had to be done manually, with his head turning performance into torment. Yet, the most memorable incident came from a seemingly harmless habit Bob May often smoked inside the suit during filming. One day, smoke leaked through tiny openings, causing director Irwin Allen to panic, believing the suit had caught fire, and he rushed in to put out the flames on the spot. The crew went from terror to bursts of laughter within seconds. But compared to what would happen next, this was still far from the greatest fear. 6. The unaired pilot, no place to hide. Few know that before Lost in Space officially premiered, the crew had completed a mysterious pilot titled No Place to Hide, a version completely different from the series audiences would later recognise. The biggest distinction, Dr. Smith was entirely absent, and the legendary robot had not yet appeared. The atmosphere of this pilot was darker, more serious, and far more survival-driven. The Robinson family was swept into a violent meteor storm, stranded in the vast void and forced to struggle for life. No laughter, no comic relief, only isolation and danger closing in from all sides. The production cost reached $600,000, a staggering figure for the time equivalent to millions today. Yet instead of airing it, the producers shelved the project. They repurposed many of its scenes while adding Dr. Smith and the robot to shift the tone toward adventure, laced with humour, a formula believed to attract a broader audience. Thus, No Place to Hide became a hidden secret in the legacy of Lost in Space. But even the episodes chosen to air were not free from turmoil. 7. When the set froze from unstoppable laughter. Not every scene on the set of Lost in Space was completed smoothly. Especially during the most absurd episodes, none more so than the Great Vegetable Rebellion. The cast often broke down, laughing mid-scene, shattering the rhythm of filming. Picture this: one actor dressed as a giant carrot, another midway through turning into a tree, all while trying to keep a straight face. The inevitable result was bursts of laughter echoing across the set, forcing the director to call cut again and again. The fallout was serious. 2 actors were suspended from the next 2 episodes for disrupting production schedules. From that moment, the atmosphere on the Lost in Space set turned unnaturally tense, silent to the point where no one dared laugh during filming. And the tension did not end behind the camera, even after the series' wrapped fractures within the cast remained plain for the public to see. 8. The 1976 reunion overshadowed by Boycott. In 1976, the hit TV show Family Feud planned a special episode to reunite the entire Lost in Space cast on stage. It was meant to be a celebratory moment where audiences could see their beloved stars together once more and relive the golden years. But then came the shock. Billy Mumy. The boy who once played Will Robinson refused to appear. Jonathan Harris, the very soul of Dr. Smith, also turned his back. No explanation, no formal announcement. Simply, they would not be there. The stage suddenly felt hollow and incomplete. The remaining cast members still smiled and stepped forward, but the absence of those two crucial figures left the reunion drained of its essence. The press and fans erupted instantly, speculating endlessly had Mumy and Harris fallen into a serious feud. Or was it the product of a simmering grudge that had lasted for years? No one confirmed, and no one denied. If this absence left audiences disappointed, then the way Lost in Space ended on television truly stunned everyone. 9. An ending with no farewell. Season 3 closed with the Robinson family stranded on a distant planet. The story simply stopped. Their fate left hanging forever. There was no wrap party, no formal goodbye. The series ended so quietly that even the actors themselves did not realise they had just filmed their final moments for Lost in Space. Then the cancellation news struck like lightning. Some broke down in tears right on set, while others stood frozen in silence. 2 decades later, the 1998 film repeated the same cruel fate, closing with a sudden leap into the future, leaving the narrative unfinished and audiences adrift in countless unanswered questions. And among those questions, another secret emerged: was Lost in Space truly an original Hollywood creation? 10. Rooted in comics and a 19th century novel. Few would expect that Lost in Space was not merely a science fiction series, but in fact the result of a time leap spanning centuries of imagination. The show was adapted from the comic Space Family. Robinson, 1962, yet its origins trace even further back the classic novel, The Swiss Family. Robinson first published in 1812. In other words, Lost in Space was an adaptation of an adaptation, a surprising rebirth of a story more than 200 years old. What is even more remarkable is that during its broadcast, the comic and the television show were promoted in parallel with striking precision, building a vast fan ecosystem that reached beyond the traditional audience of Lost in Space. It even attracted followers from rival sci-fi franchises. In fact, within the production itself, several members were devoted fans of competing series, and the most notable of them was Billy Mumy, 11. Billy Mumy, a true Star Trek fan. It sounds almost ironic the child star of Lost in Space was actually a die-hard fan of Star Trek. Billy Mumy grew up next door to William Shatner, and later seized the chance to join the rival universe when he was invited to appear as a Starfleet officer in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, The Siege of AR-558, 1998. He especially enjoyed the role simply because it did not require him to endure heavy prosthetics all day long. But Mumy was not just an actor. He was also a musician, gaining fame with the comedy music duo Barnes and Barnes and their bizarre hit Fishheads, which became a pop culture phenomenon in America. For Billy Mumy, a face forever tied to Lost in Space, to openly be a passionate Star Trek fan, the show's direct competitor at the time, was already shocking enough. Yet what happened next would leave people even more astonished. 12. Dick Twofold, the immortal voice that gave the robot its soul. For audiences, Lost in Space was remembered not only through its visuals, but also by a voice that became legendary Dick Tufeld. He was both the narrator of the series and the voice behind Robot B9, delivering the iconic line, "Danger, Will Robinson," one of the greatest catchphrases in American television history.
Danger, Will Robinson! Danger! No, Will Robinson! Danger!
Tufeld's voice carried a rare duality, warm yet authoritative, giving the robot a genuine personality that convinced viewers there was a heart beating inside that steel shell. Decades later, when the 1998 Lost in Space film was released, Tufeld returned his voice nearly unchanged by time. That immortal sound transformed the robot into the irreplaceable soul of Lost in Space. But for the robot to truly have a stage among the stars, the producers had to pour money into something far more expensive. 13. Jupiter 2, the $1,000,000 ship with a costly secret.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition!
Power!
Jupiter 2 was not only the most iconic symbol of Lost in Space, but also a financial black hole that devoured the production budget. The construction of its models and sets alone cost $350,000 in 1960, an enormous sum equal to about $2.5 to $2.6 million today. Even more surprising, Jupiter 2 was more expensive than Star Trek's USS Enterprise, its direct competitor on television. Within the story itself, its value was pushed to an unbreathable level $30 billion, making it one of the most expensive fictional ships in television history. From the control deck to the sleeping quarters to the engine room, every corner was meticulously designed, convincing viewers that this was indeed a vessel capable of travelling across the cosmos. Yet not everything seen in the series was built from scratch. Some elements were quietly borrowed from its very rivals. 14. Pointy-eared aliens, a trick of borrowed props. In 1967, for the episode The Haunted Lighthouse, the Lost in Space crew needed to introduce a new alien race. Instead of spending time on fresh designs, the makeup team took a shortcut. They borrowed the pointed ear molds straight from the Star Trek set.
My name's J5. They call you Penny, don't they?
Those ears were the unmistakable trademark of Spock, the very icon of their direct rival. Yet they appeared in Lost in Space altered only slightly to avoid instant recognition. When fans caught on, Star Trek followers were outraged, calling it blatant theft, while some Lost in Space fans laughed, believing their show had cleverly mocked its competitor. In truth, it was nothing more than a simple backstage arrangement between makeup artists. Still, the story spread like wildfire, cementing the idea that the sci-fi rivalry of the 1960s wasn't confined to the screen alone. And yet, such skirmishes paled in comparison to the real battles that erupted within the Lost in Space cast itself. 15. Backstage drama from the casting chair. Few realise that before Jonathan Harris immortalised the role of Dr. Smith in Lost in Space, Carol O'Connor, later famous as Archie Bunker, was seriously considered for the part. Had that choice been made, Dr. Smith would have been an entirely different character, less sly and humorous, but far rougher and edgier. In fact, heated debates broke out within the crew over who was truly the right fit to balance humour with dramatic tension. In the end, Carol O'Connor did not take the role, and Jonathan Harris shaped Dr. Smith into a figure both despised and utterly mesmerising. But it wasn't only casting decisions under scrutiny, even props were handled with calculated ingenuity. 16. Reused props. Creativity under a tight budget. With the budget constantly constrained, the Lost in Space crew had to innovate in ways few expected. reusing and recycling props so cleverly that audiences rarely noticed. Robots, machines, and futuristic devices were repainted given minor alterations and instantly transformed into advanced technology from some alien world. A prime example was the long-range scanner, which played 3 different roles across episodes each time, distinguished only by its new colour. Such tricks kept the series looking spectacular on screen without sending costs spiralling out of control. But saving money on props was nothing compared to a backstage incident that nearly stopped hearts on the Lost in Space set. 17. The cryo-tube mystery. Dr. Smith, the stowaway in space. According to the original plan, the Jupiter 2 was equipped with exactly 6 cryo-tubes, just enough for the Robinson family and the pilot. Everything was perfectly calculated, until Dr. Smith entered the picture. Not part of the mission, he sneaked aboard at the last moment, becoming an unplanned stowaway in deep space. When the episode aired, sharp-eyed viewers immediately noticed, "Wait, where does Smith sleep?" From there, countless humorous theories sprang up. Some claimed he must have slept sitting upright the entire voyage. Others insisted he squeezed into someone else's tube, and a few joked he hid away in the food storage compartment. Whatever the truth, it remains one of Lost in Space's funniest technical oversights, fueling fan discussions for decades. But if missing a cryotube was amusing, the next mistake made viewers frown. 18. The conflicting launch date. The Robinson family's adventure began with what seemed like a simple detail, but it became one of the show's most glaring errors: the launch date of the Jupiter 2. In the pilot, no place to hide, the date was set as October 16, 1997. Yet just a few episodes later in The Derelict, the launch was suddenly given as October 21, 1997. The odd part is that both episodes emphasised everything occurred within 24 hours of takeoff. This inconsistency sparked endless debate among fans, raising doubts about the script's accuracy and creating a strange gap in the series' timeline. Was it merely a careless mistake by the writers, or an intentional mystery left behind? To this day, the question has never been resolved, and while the launch date remained in dispute, the Robinsons' ground vehicle, the Chariot, carried surprises of its own. 19. Chariot, the indispensable companion of the crew. The Chariot ground vehicle was far more than just a prop in Lost in Space. It became the very symbol of the Robinsons' spirit of exploration and survival. Built to cross the most treacherous terrains on alien worlds, the Chariot appeared in nearly every episode, playing an irreplaceable role in their adventures. It was one of the most beloved props, not only for its unique design, but also for the way it made each exploration sequence more vivid, suspenseful, and captivating. The Chariot became a familiar image forever tied to the memories of millions of viewers who followed Lost in Space across generations. But the Robinsons' journey did not remain confined to the cosmos. They even found themselves back on Earth in one of the show's most mysterious twists. 20. The return to Earth in 1947. In the episode Visit to a Hostile Planet, the Robinson family unexpectedly travelled back in time, landing in Michigan in 1947, a shocking and rare twist in the series. This moment not only introduced one of the few true time travel plots, but also raised countless questions about the connections between different times and worlds in the Lost in Space universe. The family's sudden return to 1947 added new layers of intrigue, giving their already strange odyssey an even deeper sense of mystery. The episode closed with an echo that lingered, leaving fans speculating endlessly about the true meaning behind that journey into the past. Lost in Space was not only a classic science fiction series, but also one filled with shocking secrets and untold behind-the-scenes stories. From Dr. Smith's transformation into the soul of the show to bizarre accidents and casting drama, every detail helped build a complex and colourful picture of the world behind the production. The secrets of the enormous budget for the Jupiter 2, the borrowing of props from Star Trek, and even small technical mistakes that kept fans debating for decades, all made Lost in Space more vivid and fascinating than ever. If you want to continue uncovering the strange and unexpected hidden corners of other legendary series, don't forget to hit like, share and subscribe so you won't miss the next exciting stories. The journey into space is far from over, and there are still countless mysteries waiting for you to discover.